Today's episode of the Cloudcast is sponsored by Datadog. Bring speed and scale to your security organization. Datadog Cloud Security Platform delivers real-time threat detection and continuous configuration audits across applications, hosts, containers, and cloud infrastructure. Built on top of the observability platform, Datadog brings unprecedented integration between security and DevOps aligned to shared organizational goals. As a listener to the Cloudcast, you can sign up for a free 2-week trial to see for yourself how Datadog can elevate your cloud infrastructure security posture by visiting datadog.com/security-cloudcast. Sign up now and receive a free Datadog t-shirt. That's datadog.com/security-cloudcast.
Cloudcast Media presents from the massive studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is the Cloudcast with Aaron Delp and Brian Gracely, bringing you the best of cloud computing from around the world.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome back to the Cloudcast. We are coming to you live from the massive Cloudcast studios here in Raleigh, North Carolina. Hope everybody is doing well. Another Sunday perspective. We're kind of in the middle of October 2022. Fall is here, and we're getting ready to ramp up into trade show season. So I know Aaron and I are both going to be at KubeCon. So if you're going to be in KubeCon in Detroit, it'd be cool to, if you're a listener, if you're just a friend and we haven't seen each other in a long time, it'd be good to sync up and kind of meet in person. Maybe grab a drink or just say hi, see how everything's going. So I kind of want to talk about something that I mentioned on one of the shows that when we had Brandon Wichard on here not too long ago. And we were kind of kicking around some things. We were talking about like what's working in the industry, what feels like maybe it's going back to previous days. And we were kind of kicking around halfway jokingly kind of the idea of technical debt and how technical debt, the concept of technical debt sort of has a branding issue, has a marketing issue in terms of, when people talk about technical debt, it's always perceived as this thing of like, it's this huge burden on people, but it's not funded anymore. It was funded years ago. It was kind of maybe some bad decisions that were made, or maybe there were great decisions that were made years ago, and you're sort of stuck with it. And I sort of jokingly said, well, technical debt really needs to get its act together and sort of go on a new branding campaign. And I started calling it sort of ROIOps and, sort of return on investment ops. And, I sort of said it half jokingly because the theme of that show we were talking about was, we started off with the new mandate in Japan in which you could, they were going to get rid of floppy disks. And we talked about how, the person who was going to drive that project was going to have to be a real kind of hard ass, if you will, pardon my French, about making this happen, because I'm sure there's people who are like, oh, I don't want to work on that. It's old, or, why are we doing this? Or, oh, there's 10 reasons why this is impossible to do. And, it got me thinking, kind of past the sort of half jokingness of this idea of ROI ops. What does that really mean? And, I think a lot of times in our industry, there are times when things are appropriate given the situation being kind of the economy, kind of the state of technology, kind of people's, fervor for new things or old things or whatever that might be. And I thought, I've been thinking about this ROI ops concept for a few weeks now, and I think there's something to it in terms of, how to apply a mindset around trying to improve things, trying to fix things, but doing it in a way in which people are going to look at it and go, okay, this is worth your time. This is worth your time both to your business as well as, potentially worth your time in terms of sort of your career advancement, those types of things. And so I'm going to dive into kind of a framework for ROI ops right after the break. Today's show is sponsored by CloudZero. For software-driven companies focused on growing margins, CloudZero is the only cloud cost intelligence platform that puts engineering in control by connecting technical decisions to business results. By analyzing cloud services like AWS and Snowflake, CloudZero provides real-time cost insights that help you maximize margins. Engineering teams can answer critical questions like, who are my most expensive customers? How much does this specific feature cost our business? What's the cost impact of re-architecting this application? With cost anomaly alerts via Slack, product-specific data views, and granular engineering context that makes it easy to investigate any cost, CloudZero is your complete cloud cost intelligence platform, connecting the dots between high-level trends and individual line items. Join companies like Drift, Rapid7, and SeatGeek by visiting cloudzero.com/cloudcast to get started today. That's cloudzero.com/cloudcast. Buffering. How annoying. Did you know that 17 out of 20 people stop watching a video because of stalling and rebuffering? Don't let your users click away to a competitor's site. If your business lies on online media, rely on CDN77 to deliver a seamless online experience to your audience. CDN77 is one of the leading global providers of content delivery network services. They power the world's most popular websites and apps such as Udemy, ESL Gaming, live sports TV, and social media platforms. Aside from their massive and redundant global network, you're going to love their no BS attitude and skilled team of engineers ready to help 24/7. No chatbots, no tickets bouncing around unresolved for days, just people who know your use case and can immediately help you pinpoint and fix the problems. Don't wait until your users run out of patience. Go to cdn77.com/cloudcast and ask for a free trial with no duration or traffic limits. That's cdn77.com/cloudcast. And we're back. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, we're going to dig a little bit into this concept that kicking around the idea of ROI ops, return on investment ops. And ROI is sort of a weird thing in our industry. So if you're a technologist, one of the things that we always kind of recommend is obviously you're trying to build your skills, you're trying to hone your craft, you're trying to be good at what you do. But ultimately, the reason that companies are deploying this technology is not because, they wake up in the morning and go, ooh, we have a Kubernetes problem, or ooh, we have a, whatever problem. It's because they wake up and they go, the business is in business to generate profits either for the owners of the business, the employees, stakeholders, shareholders, all those types of things. And so, one of the things that comes up all the time whenever technology decisions are made is people sort of go, okay, well, what am I going to get out of making this decision? What am I going to get out of making this investment? And it's a valuable thing to do as a technologist, to spend a little bit of time sort of learning the money side of things, right? Like how do the people that are tasked with making those decisions, managing those budgets, managing those teams, how do they sort of go through the process of deciding what gets selected, what projects get kind of put on the back burner, what projects get dumped, and one of the tools they use, or at least classically that they've used, is something called ROI, return on investment. And so return on investment in the simplest terms, and you can go look it up in all sorts of things, but in essence, it's somebody saying, look, I am going to make an investment. I'm going to make a sort of an upfront type of investment. And over time, my expectation is that the amount of money that we invest, not only do we recoup at least a portion of it, hopefully more than a portion of it, some multiple portion of it, but we're going to recoup it in a sort of known amount of time. Because essentially what happens is, as a business, you have a finite amount of capital, finite amount of money that you have to apply to projects. And you're really kind of looking for, what are the things that are going to drive the best returns, right? Best returns being like the most positive feedback, if you will, right? And that, how you measure returns could be a number of things. It could be simply we want to get back, 20%. We want to get back the largest percentage we can get back. Kind of the same way people think about, buying stocks. I want to buy a stock in the market. I want it to go up as much as possible. It might be, we are trying to drive the greatest amount of customer satisfaction in some measurable way. And, the expectation is if I drive great customer satisfaction, great customer experience, that will ultimately lead to, loyal customers. Sometimes they're called raving fans. There's a great book called Raving Fans if you want to kind of get into what customer experiences seem like. But you're ultimately saying like, look, I'm looking to make an investment in this, and the other reason the timing piece of it is so important is that, you're also kind of saying like, look, are we trying to get these returns in a finite period of time? Maybe it's this quarter, maybe it's this fiscal year, maybe it's, everything is a 2-year window in IT, however you measure it in your business. And the reason I say it's important to kind of understand some of these things from the business is, as you're working on new projects and you're looking at things, a lot of times, depending on how far into the trenches you are in your job, you may not be thinking about those things at all. You may just be thinking about literally, right now I am buried. Right now I feel like I'm drowning in the number of projects that we have and the things that we're working on. And you're just simply like, I just want the bad days to go away. I just want, that identification on a spreadsheet for a status to go from red to yellow or yellow to green, right? And that's perfectly fine. Like there's lots and lots of people who, are kind of in that boat in terms of, I don't have the broader visibility of what's going on. But one of the things that as you start to understand the business, as you start to sort of understand the way that the business measures things, or the things that are important to the business, or the things that are just important to your group, because you may look at it and say, well, I don't really have the ability to impact the business in a really big way, but our group has certain goals, our group has certain KPIs or key performance indicators, or however you measure your goals, your kind of motivational things. And as you're thinking about those things, one of the things I've found over time is that there are lots of times when the new project, kind of the new shiny thing, the new innovation, we're going to do a new thing in the business, gets a lot of attention because people, especially technologists, we love working with new. We love the idea of like, okay, we're gonna take on something and we're gonna build it, and we're gonna kind of show off our skills, and we're gonna kind of prove that we can do certain things, or we're just really excited about something new because it seems like, oh, it's going to solve a problem for us, or it's going to make things really easy. And the reality is, like, even when something is new, you kick off a new project, a couple of years in, or a year in, or however long in, like, it stops being new. It just becomes the thing, right? The thing you're doing. So the sort of fascination with new, is something that, while you can kind of get addicted to, and we tend to get addicted to it in tech, because so many of the headlines that are written, so many of the articles that are written, even the podcasts that we do, and we're guilty of being part of this, is about what's new. What's new? How can this new thing make things better for us? Technology is oftentimes kind of positioned as, what can it do to make things easier, make it faster, make it cheaper, whatever it might be. And the reality is, there's new projects, if you will, and some people will get to work on those. Sometimes maybe you're always working on those. Great. And then there's sort of the middle, right? And what I mean by the middle is just sort of your sort of monotonous day to day. You're just chipping away at things. You're kind of, you show up on Monday morning, the work's still there. You leave on Friday, the pile of work is still there. Hopefully it's slightly smaller than it was on Monday. And what technical debt sort of falls into is this middle ground, right? You can think of it as like, well, it's technical debt. We don't ever think about it. Almost the way you think about like putting boxes in your attic, and you never go back and look at those things. Well, those things you probably sort of ignore at some point, right? But in the sort of the things that you do day to day that are active, it feels like you're going to have sort of a middle. And quite honestly, in a lot of aspects of jobs and technology and so forth, you kind of don't want to be stuck in the middle, because middle is that place where, people are kind of questioning, like, why do we keep doing that, right? It's the thing that whenever, things get tighter at your job, whenever things get a little tougher, whenever the economy gets a little slower, whenever things aren't sort of in sort of a purely boom area, it's the spot where middle managers, upper management kind of look at it and they go, why are we doing that, right? Because the middle is the space that gets really no visibility in terms of nobody's out there marketing the middle. Nobody's out there marketing sort of the day-to-day things going, yeah, we're fine. We're good at those things. And, for a while they sort of sit there and they, people do their thing, and they're just kind of plodding along and doing their job, and maybe it's getting 1% better and 2% better. But when things kind of get a little tighter, people start to go, we have a mandate to take 10% of costs out of the system, or we have a mandate to, try and do, like I mentioned in the last week's show, like do 20% more with the same number of people we have. And so the middle is the place where, things kind of get looked at, and it's really hard to defend what the middle is doing, right? And what I mean by the middle versus, so again, you've got on one end of the spectrum, you've got these new stuff, and then you've got this sort of, what you consider sort of dead end things, maybe sort of on the far other side of the spectrum. And in the middle, you've got all these sort of kind of ongoing projects. And the middle is where I really think the concept of ROIOps, if you start to think about it, really kind of makes sense. And again, I'm just sort of thinking about it from a terminology perspective. I'm not trying to introduce any sort of like, brand new, like this isn't like, hey, this is the new DevOps calms and all this sort of stuff. But I think the mindset of sort of saying, okay, we're going to start to not think about these things that we do day to day as the middle, Because again, those become sort of a target for, why are we doing them? Do we really need to do them? Can somebody explain this to me? Because I don't totally understand it. And it gives you an opportunity to go, how can we optimize these things, right? And sort of actively talk about, we're trying to optimize these things and kind of make an effort to, I'll say market, but market really in many cases just means communicate and talk about the things that you're doing to try and improve them. And especially when things get a little bit tighter, it gives you an opportunity to say, hey, we're actively focusing on this. We're not just sort of letting it go. It's not just sort of like the backyard and you don't really want to mow the grass and maybe you mow it and maybe you don't mow it and you don't really care. It's, hey, we're going to actively work on these things. And the way to think about this is, nobody in IT really kind of holds themselves accountable to ROI. It's a wonderful way at the beginning of projects to get funding done, especially if it's large amounts of funding, right? If you're doing data center projects or something, or maybe you're taking on that $20 million enterprise licensing agreement with VMware or Microsoft or Google or Azure or something like that. But ultimately, people don't stick around in the same areas of IT. So, kind of the upfront ROI doesn't necessarily get measured in the long term. But in terms of what you have the opportunity to impact in the short term, especially if you're thinking about it in terms of what can I do in a quarter, what can I do in 6 months, what can I do in a year, things that are probably typically within your fiscal year, within your review cycle, whatever it might be. And you start to think about where can we do things that measure, that are, you can find measurable improvement, right? And this is where you really start to think about, what does the process look like? Can I map out what the current processes we have? What's the current steps that we have to do these things? And where can I take a step out? Where can I take a half a step out? Where can we, find a way to process, twice as much for, in the same period of time, right? And so you start to think about, where are there areas to improve, but also think about how can I measure that? How can I measure that in a way that we can communicate this up to people of, we're going to try and do these things. We're going to try and improve these things. And, there's lots of folks who kind of get promoted. We talked about on one of the shows, and I know other people have talked about this, sort of this Google idea of, we're going to launch, we're going to promote, and then we're going to ignore. I think that's not what it was, or abandon. I think it was launch, promote, and abandon. And I know the software-defined talk guys talked about it. We had it in the show notes for stuff. There's plenty of people that get promoted or that get a lot of attention for that sort of thing. But especially in these sort of times when, again, the economy slows down a little bit or, people are going through kind of a different shift in terms of priorities for the business. If you can be the person who, kind of comes along and says, look, we are going to sort of take this ROI ops mindset, which, again, doesn't always have to be cost cutting. It can really be, how can we, start to do that sort of 20% more, with the same things we have, or it could be 10% more, it could be 8% more. Those are things that not only sort of show that you've taken initiative in the business to, not only understand the technology, but understand the business. You're probably going to have to ask some people like, okay, how does this work? What does A lead to B lead to C? But it also shows that you're taking some initiatives that are going to flow upward, that other people, and again, sometimes this is kind of the way the game works. Other people can kind of go, okay, our group did this, and allow the, what might be an individual task to have the group kind of get credit for it. Right? You're chipping away at it. And it may be something in which you say, look, we really thought about the area that we work in from a technology perspective. And, the KPIs or the goals or the metrics that we have don't really apply to us. But here's another set that do. And, while those over there are really hard to measure or they're really hard to achieve or they really aren't something that we can impact, here's a set that do. And if you can connect the dots between the technology improvements you're going to make and that ROI, that return that you're going to get, you're going to make something X amount faster. You're going to be able to process X amount more, with the same sort of resources. You're going to be able to do things with 3 less steps, and therefore it's going to turn into either better customer experience, cost savings, more flexibility. It really sort of shows the business, and it'll show your management teams that you're not just there to collect a paycheck. You're not just there to only work on technology. You're really trying to better understand the business. And, especially in these times, this is when, if you're not starting as many innovative projects, it gives you an opportunity to not just sort of be doing sort of the monotonous middle, stuck in the middle. Gives you an opportunity to go, yes, we're going to work on some of those things that are the sort of day-to-day middle things, but we're doing them with a different mindset. We're doing them with a mindset of not just, hey, we're just showing up and we're doing this thing. And you get yourself in a situation where you're potentially being looked at as like, do we need 6 people doing that when we could have 5? Why are we still doing that project? What is that? I wasn't there 2 years ago when we started. Does that make sense anymore? If you can be active about, sort of taking the middle, if you will, and again, thinking of it from an ROI perspective. And again, ROI doesn't have to be over years, and it doesn't even have to necessarily align to the big picture of what the company's doing. You don't have to go talk to the CFO. But if you can come back and go, look, we're going to work on this thing with this distinct reason for what we're trying to do, and frame it in the context of both, there is work to be done, but here's sort of the returns that come out of it. I think there's a lot of possibility there in terms of, you showcasing that you understand the business, that you want to be part of improving the business, not just sort of, having a metric for yourself or a goal for yourself. But it also, it's going to probably spurn other people in the group, get them talking and going, oh, hey, we could do this too. We could try working on this too. And it becomes this sort of continuous improvement thing as opposed to thinking about it as technical debt. So anyways, just a thought, and it's sort of a concept that I've been thinking about for the last couple of weeks. Like I mentioned, Brandon Wichert and I kind of kicked around the idea, and we're kind of jokingly talking about it. But I think, especially in this time when projects may be a little tighter, finances may be a little tighter for things within the business, you're kind of looking at it going, okay, maybe there aren't going to be as many big promotions. I'm not looking to change jobs, but I'm looking to kind of make a name for myself where I am. It's an opportunity to go, okay, I'm going to showcase not only my technical skills, but also my awareness of what the business does and how these investments that we continue to make in technology and people around technology are impacting the business. So it's a good opportunity for you to, learn a little bit about kind of how the economics of business work, but also, kind of force yourself to go, okay, why are we doing this? And why do we keep doing it the way we do? We are doing it sort of in the technical debt sense. And then, trying to apply some smarts and go, how do we turn this, what is oftentimes perceived as a negative, into a positive or an opportunity for it to be positive. So anyways, with that, I'm going to wrap it up. Hope everybody's doing well here on this Sunday. As we mentioned, you guys have been amazing lately. Thank you for everybody who's been giving us feedback on the show, sending us notes and ideas for things. If you get a chance, please give us a rating, whether it's on Apple or Google or Spotify or however you listen to your podcast. We'd love to get some ratings, get some feedback. It helps give us feedback, but it also, helps other new people who may want to join the Cloudcast community learn about the podcast. So the higher the show is ranked, the more it pops up in the things you should go listen to. So thank you all for listening. Thank you all for telling a friend. Thank you all for helping us grow the community. It's been a great few months. The last few months, like I mentioned, have been sort of record numbers. So thank you. And with that, I'm going to wrap it up, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to The Cloudcast. Please visit thecloudcast.net to find more shows, show notes, videos, and everything social media.